John Hart. I am the co-founder of C3 Solutions. That stands for the Conservative Coalition for Climate Solutions. And today we have a very special guest for our Right Voices series. Former U.S. Senator, presidential candidate, Rick Santorum is here with us. Rick is one of our advisors at C3 Solutions. We're very honored to have him on our board. And Rick, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot happening in American politics. Yeah. There's a lot of elephants in the room. So we're gonna talk about all those things. But to start, I want to give kind of our viewers and listeners just some frame of reference and some context. So why does Rick Santorum care about the environment? Why don't we start there?
Well, gosh, everybody should care about the environment. I mean, that's where we live. The idea that the left seems to try to perpetrate is that, conservatives and Republicans don't care about the environment. But, if you go back in the Republican Party, I mean, I know in Pennsylvania, for example, Gifford Pinchot, governor of Pennsylvania during the turn of the last century, was famous in setting up state parks and doing all sorts of environmental, benefits because Pennsylvania means Penn's Woods. That's what Pennsylvania means, Penn's Woods. And Pennsylvania was entirely woods. I mean, it was just trees everywhere, and it was pretty much clear cut over, the first couple hundred years. And so Pinchot, Teddy Roosevelt, another one, they saw the necessity for government to step in and preserve a very critical, natural phenomena or forest, whatever the case may be. So, the Republican Party has a long history in this, and I'm someone who believes we have to be good stewards of our environment. I mean, that's the Lord said, I'm a Catholic and believing, and he said, you have dominion over the earth. That's what he says in the Old Testament, and that means that you have responsibility for that. And so we have to take that responsibility seriously. And the adage that you should leave things better than you found them, which is something that conservatives believe, right? To conserve and to take what you have and try to make it better for the next generation, while conserving what is good about your current situation. That's exactly what good stewards of the environment should do. So that's a long answer, but I get a little miffed when people seem to suggest that somehow or another, we don't care. We just believe that there are efficient and really good ways of preserving the environment, and at the same time having a strong and healthy economy and quality of life. We can do both. It's not one or the other.
Well, and Ricky, you share a little bit about your personal life. I mean, you have land. Tell our viewers and listeners what you do in your land.
Yeah, I mean, I just put in a new hive of bees. So I'm a beekeeper, which I thoroughly enjoy. I love my little girls, and that's all the bees that produce honey. Anyway, are female bees. The guys are sort of worthless in the hive by and large. So I have a beehive, and I've been a beekeeper off and on for probably 10, 12 years now. And I've gotten honey many years, and I've dealt with what beekeepers deal with, which is something called Connolly collapse disorder, and have been sort of somewhat active on that area and making sure that we don't have pesticides and other things that can destroy bees, which are essential for our pollination, for our survival. So I sort of feel like I'm contributing my little piece by having my own little hive. We have 5 acres where we live, and I have about 45 fruit trees, everything from apples to peaches to pears to sweet and tart cherries and plums. And so I grow blueberries and raspberries and marionberries, and so I love growing and gardening and taking care of the world around me, if you will, and trying to make it productive and beautiful at the same time. So that's a passion of mine. I got it from my grandfather, who came over from the old country, Italy, and had his own little plot, a garden, had a couple of fruit trees. And so when I was a little kid, I used to go out in the garden and garden with him. And you just did the same thing with my kids. So you try to pass on, the importance of your connection with nature. If food doesn't come from the grocery store, right? It comes from people grow it and produce it, and you have to do so responsibly.
Yeah. And have you turned that into a business? Do you sell your honey or sell your?
No, I give it away. I usually as my wife says, they're expensive Christmas gifts, but we have lots of relatives, nieces, nephews, things like that. And so we always give a couple of jars of jam. We make jam from that, so we can keep it preserved sometimes too. And so we give those away for gifts and Christmas and little special occasions. So that's how we take, because it's a lot of fruit trees, so you can't eat it all fresh. So you have to do something to keep it working for the long term. So that's what we did.
That's fantastic. And also, you've done work internationally as well on some different projects. Do you want to share?
Yeah, I'm actually very involved on a couple of companies that are green energy companies. One is a really tremendous innovation having to do with solar wind, which is taking hot air, running it through a tower, if you will, to create wind, downdraft, and power turbines, and a completely green solution. I mean, all you do is you need some water, but other than that, I mean, it's using the forces of nature to create energy, and doing so in a very, very efficient way. So I've been involved with that company for about 5 or 6 years. Not heavily, but involved in helping move that company forward. I've been very much more involved, deeply involved with a company that's a waste energy company, trying to solve 2 problems. Actually, you might say 3 problems, but we're trying to solve the waste problem, which is the number of landfills that we have in this country, the groundwater pollution that comes, methane, which with the environmental groups call the planet killer, because it's, almost 100 times more greenhouse, has more greenhouse properties than CO2. So it's a much more dangerous gas for the atmosphere. And yet landfills all over the world are emitting it at alarming rates. And you see a lot of effort trying to do something about landfills. Well, we have a technology that can actually take, mine landfills, not just take garbage and turn it into a green fuel, but also, which I'm saying garbage, municipal waste, commercial waste, things like that. But also we could set these machines up at landfills and actually empty out landfills. So get rid of methane gas, if you will. So we can solve deal with the climate problem, deal with, groundwater. You can deal with, clean green energy to substitute for fossil fuels. So we feel like plastics, one of the things that our process uses, we can take, plastics and recycle them. So there's all sorts of great things that I'm working on. And again, I going back to the point I made earlier, which is, I want to make sure that the environment is, we have a good environment for my children and their children, and going forward. And I believe, as America has shown repeatedly, the best way to do that is through innovation, technology, and really good ideas that work to solve problems and make profits at the same time. I mean, that's because that makes it a viable solution going forward. If it's not profitable, if it's something that's a cost, then it tends not to be viable, particularly if, one of the beautiful things, I take the third world, one of the exciting things that is our process actually can survive even in environments where the economics of trash are not what they are in the United States and Europe and other places like that, because of its efficiency. And if you couldn't do that, then it's going to take a lot of government dollars and international dollars to sort of support this process. And in the end, that makes it less viable going forward.
Yeah, and last week we had a discussion with Nick Loris. Nick is at the Heritage Foundation. He did a paper for us called "Free Economies or Clean Economies."
Yeah.
And to your point, what Nick found is he looked at 180 different countries using the index of economic indicators. And he showed that there's a correlation between economic freedom and environmental performance. So roughly a free economy is going to be twice as clean as an unfree economy. And that's on our website, c3solutions.org. And you can read all about that. And you can read more about Rick's bio and our founding story. But, one thing I want to set up from the beginning too is, part of the reason, we launched is Drew Bond worked for George Bush, Bush administration. I was Tom Coburn's longtime communications director. Our paths interacted a little bit, but mostly with staff, Mark Rogers, who was your staff director. And one thing I really admire and appreciate about you, Rick, is you talk a lot about the working man. But it's not an abstraction, is that you have given your life and dedicated your life to causes. And I've spent a lot of time with political leaders, and you're the real deal behind the scenes. So I've spent years working alongside you and others on healthcare reform. Tom Coburn.
Yeah.
We had an alternative.
Dr. Tom Coburn.
All right. We had an alternative to Obamacare.
Yep.
Before Obamacare was written. And we sadly lost Coburn. He passed away a year and a half ago. It left the Senate before then, but there's a whole series of conservatives who work behind the scenes on this issue, and you've been really relentless. And part of the reason we launched is that I was leading some of the communication efforts on healthcare. I thought, it's not enough to indict and critique the left. We have to offer our ideas and our solutions. And you've been in the trenches on that. And now you've been willing to lend your credibility and experience in this environmental space. And I remember after one of our meetings, I think we were talking about one of the alternatives that we had cooking. And we were walking along the street and we got into this discussion about bees and trees. And I just bought a 62-acre farm where I am now near in Maryland, in Pleasant Valley, Maryland. So I remember distinctly how you just came alive, when you started talking about your bees and your pictures. So it's really been a joy to kind of be on this journey with you. And this is a really challenging kind of troubled time, I think, for the GOP. And, you're not just another former member. You nearly became our party's nominee in 2012. You were chairman of the Republican Conference, which is the senior communication role and leadership for 6 years. So you really have a lifetime of experience. And I wanted to really spend the rest of our time to give you the opportunity to speak into this moment we're in right now and to give your candid perspectives. And again, we're a 501c3. We're not a partisan organization, but we believe unapologetically in conservative principles. Our mission is to not, just indict the Democrats or praise Republicans, or to save Republicans from themselves. We're here to advance ideas and solutions. And I've been reading some of your previous work. You wrote a book in 2014 called Blue Collar Conservatives. And I think it was prophetic in many ways. I'm just going to read a section of that. In your introduction, you write that the United States must do everything it can to nurture the inventors and entrepreneurs who are the creative spirits of our free economy. And here the case for Republican policies is strong, but that's not enough. We Republicans must show the unemployed, the underemployed, and the struggling worker that we are on their side and want their support. We cannot forget the blue-collar conservatives who are the backbone of this country. We have an obligation to restore the American dream for them and their families. And until we internalize this as a party, we will continue to lose.